Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. These programs that we're starting with today are celebrating the summer 2022 One City, One Story. We're featuring the book Stealing Home, Los Angeles, The Dodgers and the Lives Caught in Between by Eric Nussbaum. And Eric Nussbaum will be here on Saturday, June the 25th at 3 p.m. at the Robinson Park Community Room, 1081 North Fair Oaks Avenue, and we hope that you will come in person. But today we are absolutely delighted to be able to welcome Chris Enss, who has presented several times with us before, and we're delighted that she is back, and she is with her co-author on this book, Howard Tanzanian. And they are talking about a fascinating book related to baseball, The Death Row All-Stars, a story of baseball, corruption, and murder. So before we get started, and I introduce Chris and Howard, please mute yourself. Please put your questions in chat as we go through the program, and after the presentation, Chris and Howard will answer all of your questions. Also, they have very nicely agreed to have today's program recorded for YouTube Pasadena Library. We have live recording that you can actually look at and set up on your own end so that you can read what is being said during the program. So I want to tell you a little bit about Chris. You've probably met her several times before if you've come to our wonderful Authors and Their Journey series, but she's written for television, short subject films, live performances, and the movies. She's also written more than 25 books. She has presented several books for us, and I'm going to let her tell you about the books that have just won several awards, and it's very exciting for Chris. Howard is an award-winning producer and entertainment executive who has been producing feature films and television programs for more than 25 years, and he lives in Pasadena. So welcome, Chris and Howard. Thank you so much for presenting our first program for Summer One City, One Story, The Death Row All-Stars.
Well, thank you very much, Christine. It's a pleasure to be with you again and to talk about our latest book. Well, it's not our latest book, but just to be able to talk about this latest topic. You asked me to mention the book that has been honored with some awards since last we spoke, and that was Iron Women, the Ladies Who Helped Build the Railroad. And that has been honored with a finalist award for the Forward Review magazine, and the Will Rogers Medallion Award, and also a finalist with the Western Writers of America Spur Award. So hopefully everybody has come to check that book out at the library there, Christine, I hope. And remember the last time we talked about these amazing ladies. Howard and I want to mention before I get into the talk about the Death Row All-Stars that Howard and I have a book coming out next week. It's called The Widowed Ones, Beyond the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And it's about the friendship and the camaraderie that 7 of the officers' wives who were left widows after the Battle of the Last Stand had. It's about how they got through this horrific tragedy and their friendship and what happened to them afterwards. We like to think that it's new that the press is hounding people after a tragedy, but the Battle of the Little Bighorn happened in 1876, and the press was hounding those women at that time too, wondering where they were going to go, how they were going to make a living, where they were going to live. So anyway, it was an interesting book to work on, and hopefully I don't know whether you have a copy of that, Christine. I'll make sure that the library gets a copy of it. Maybe we can talk about that at a later date. But
Well,
today
the
we're talking.
reviews also have been outstanding, Chris. You might
Oh,
know that.
that's right. The reviews have been outstanding. That's right. We've got good reviews from Kirkus Review, from the Library Journal, from the Midwest Book Review, from Clarion Book Review, Arizona Daily Star. People have really. I spoke with the gentleman today who reviewed the book for another publication, and he said, you know, it was interesting to read, but it made me very sad. So, you know, but it's a piece of history, and not all history is fun history, but I think all of it's entertaining, which is what leads me to talk a little bit about the Death Row All-Stars. Here's the cover of the book, The Death Row All-Stars, the story of baseball, corruption, and murder. And of all of the books that Howard and I have worked on together, I think this one has really stayed with me the longest, because the story is so unbelievable yet true. It was a baseball team in 1911 who played for a prison in Rawlins, Wyoming. And as long as they played and won, they got stays of execution. And this particular team didn't start out being a team that was going to play for their lives. It started out with Felix Wharton, who was the warden, who was looking for a way to bring exercise and some form of not entertainment, but just some form of, well, I guess entertainment is a good word, not only exercise, but some form of entertainment into the prison. And there were already prisons that were doing baseball teams. And so he pulled together this baseball team, and they were all members of the death row section of the prison. And these players were guilty of some horrendous crimes, but when they played together on the field, all of those crimes seemed to disappear. And what rose to the top was their ability to play the game as well as they did. Felix Wharton, who was the warden of the team, his best friend was a gentleman by the name of George Sabin. And George Sabin just happened to be the captain of the baseball team. And Sabin was in prison for murder. He had murdered sheep ranchers, which oddly enough, in 1910, when George Sabin was killing sheep herders, it was considered to be an act of kindness for killing the sheep herders, because the cattlemen did not want the sheep herders there. So even though Sabin was guilty of killing sheep herders and locked away, he was really quite favored for having done the community a service. So he was not only did they figure he did the community a service, but he was also the warden's best friend. He stood up for the warden at the warden's wedding. And before he went to prison, the two of them were very good friends, and they remained friends on the inside. So when the warden was looking for a captain of his baseball team, it seemed like a natural to have Sabin to be that. I'm gonna have to get a drink here. I lost my voice suddenly.
While she's taking a drink, I'll say that baseball was extremely popular at that time in the early part of the 1900s. You know, they didn't have television, they didn't have coverage. Baseball was just beginning to be extremely popular.
And there was a lot going on in the national scene with baseball too. I mean, you had Ty Cobb really coming up, and then by 1918, you had the whole controversy with the Black Sox, as they were later known, in the 8-man out story. But yeah, baseball at that particular time, and specifically in Rawlins, Wyoming, it was very popular. I want to back up and say that if you were a criminal, the last place that you wanted to be was in Rawlins, Wyoming, or Wyoming as a whole. No one was more treated the people who had been convicted of crimes more quickly and swiftly than anybody in the Wyoming area. In Rawlins, Wyoming, there was a gentleman there who was guilty of robbery, and his name was George Parrott. And George Parrott was caught, and before he was even vigilantes took hold of Mr. Parrott, and they strung him up, and then they skinned him, and they made shoes out of his skin, put that in the shoes in the window of the barber shop. So anybody coming in town who were thinking about perpetrating a crime could go by the barber shop, which is really everything at that particular time. I mean, the barber shop wasn't just a place where you got your hair cut; it was your doctor too. So everybody was centralized at the barber shop. So when they would go by and they would see Sabin's see those shoes made out of Sabin's skin, it was to frighten them from doing any crime in that area. So you couldn't really be a criminal on the outside. And so when the baseball team starts to do so well, and the Felix Alston, the warden, can see such promise in this team, and Sabin sees promise in this team too, then you have a lot of gambling that's going on, people that are placing bets on the All-Stars to win, and lots of money was trading hands. And Sabin was the gentleman who would be allowed to go in and out of the prison to collect the bets and to hold the bets. And it was really quite a unique setting when you would have the guards, the armed guards, being able to escort George Sabin back and forth from the prison to the outside to be able to lay these bets down. So it was quite unique. And then out of these, then as the betting goes on, you have people in higher positions of government placing bets on this team, and no one wanting to lose these bets. And so the idea that if these gentlemen played well, and continue to play well and win and be able to make money for the people betting on the team, then they would get stays of execution. This goes on for a while and does okay. Their most valuable player on the team was a gentleman by the name of Joseph Singh. And Singh is in prison for murder. He was working for the railroad. A lot of the men in Wyoming at that time was working for the railroad. And Singh was working at a roundabout railroad station in a place called Evanston, Wyoming. And that's where he murdered his boss. In the book, you learn that he was having an affair with his boss's wife, which led to the skirmish between his boss's wife and Joseph Singh and his boss. And so that particular encounter led to Joseph Singh's boss being killed. And so Singh is in jail for that. But Singh shows amazing aptitude for the game. He came from the Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania area, and he was a baseball player from way back. A lot of these men were good baseball players and had been playing baseball for a while. So Singh is a natural on the team, and he really holds the team together. And they have great camaraderie on the field, and they win all of their games. They play primarily local teams, but they are being courted by outside bigger teams to play in games against them. One of their very first games was publicized in the Washington Post. And from that article in the Washington Post, you had lots of people wanting to find out more about this team, and lots of baseball teams wanting to take on the Death Row All-Stars. As in all, I want to show you a picture again. I don't know if you can see here in the middle of this picture, you see this little boy right there, which is what sparked my interest in this subject to begin with, because I wanted to know who would have their little boy, have a picture of the little boy taken with all of these rapists and murderers and just the worst people. And then that turns out to be the warden's son. He was the bat boy for the team. So that's the kind of influence that he wanted on his son, I suppose. But anyway, I thought that was quite interesting that his son is right in the middle of all of these people, and he's the bat boy. And so that's what sparked my interest in it to begin with. Howard, were you ever at the prison? Did you ever go to the prison in Rollin?
Not yet. I'm hoping once, in mid-July, that we'll scout the prison.
Good. The prison is absolutely fascinating. It is, it's a major tourist attraction, but it's really not open. During the summer, it's open quite frequently, but during the rest of the year, it's closed. And in many of the cells now, you can go in, and the city is using it to warehouse some of the city property. You'll find the Christmas lights and all the Christmas decorations for the town in one of the cells. You find some files, some old file property from the sheriff's office. And so it's an amazing place. And when there's some wonderful pictures of the prison in the book. And one of the things that I found amazing when I was there, the infirmary where you would go if you were not feeling well, is a glass enclosed infirmary, and it looks right into the gallows. So, and that's where all the death row inmates would go. And in one segment of the book is a story about how Singh and the others got food poisoning. And Singh, who has not only a great aptitude for baseball, but he also works in the infirmary. He's got a great aptitude for medicine. Had he not gotten in trouble like he did, he could have had a marvelous career. And the doctor for the prison said that he could have had a great career as a physician. And so when Singh and the others get food poisoning and they end up in the infirmary, they're on death row anyway. And so I don't know what their incentive would be to get well, since you're looking right at the gallows. But they do, and Singh helps them along the way. And of course, in every occurrence like this, the crimes finally get called out, and they do, and complaints are made. And Felix Wharton, the warden, is the very first who has to try to come up with what he's going to do to save face. And all those people that are saying that he is laying bets on this team, and he's denying that this is happening. And he decides that the first person that's going to be led to the gallows to be able to prove that this is incorrect is Joseph Singh, their most valuable player. And there's also a picture in the book of what is known as the Julian Gallows. And if you go to the facility, and Howard, when you go there, you'll be able to see the Julian Gallows. It's quite haunting. The Julian Gallows was a device unlike any other contraption when it came to hanging someone in those days. Generally, if a person was to be hanged in a prison like this, their head would be covered with a hood, and they would stand on a trap door, and the guard would pull the trap door, and then the inmate would he would have no place to fall, so he would fall, and then he would instantly be killed. They felt as though that was inhumane to the guards to have them to flip that lever, and so they invented the Julian Gallows. And the Julian Gallows still was, the inmate had a hood over his head, and the inmate took a step on the trap door, but the trap door then was activated by a series of weights and pulleys with water. And so you had this big terrain of water, which was poured into these different weren't necessarily cups, but they looked like tin cans to try and gauge the weight of the gentleman that's going to be hanged. And after 3 to 5 minutes of this water being pulled from within, the door would release. So the inmate was standing on this trap door for maybe 3 to 5 minutes before the door was even released, trying to figure out this contraption of weights and water and pulleys. And then oftentimes when the trap door was sprung, the water gauge wasn't really correct. And so there wasn't enough pull on the rope to be able to hang the gentleman instantly. And so guards would have to be called in, wrap their arms around the inmate, and then jerk them down to snap their neck, which it would seem to me it would be a little bit more humane the other way around than to have the guards come in and do that. But Joseph Singh, that's how he meets his demise. He's the first one to be led to the gallows, and he's the first one to be sent to the Julian Gallows, and that the guards have to come down and wrap their arms around him and pull him down. So the book is not just about, the book has many layers because it's not just about baseball. It would be a misnomer to say it's just about baseball, although that's the central key heart of this particular book, and the camaraderie that the team has, and how upset the other inmates are because they feel as though they're getting preferential treatment. They're not really getting preferential treatment. They're just being kept alive so the bigwigs could win lots of money. But at the heart of this story too is a murder mystery, and the mystery is with Joseph Singh and the woman that he's in love with, and I think that's a key element of the story. Wouldn't you say, Howard?
Yes, I definitely say that. The question, and I don't know that we should reveal it, is, did he really murder his girlfriend's husband?
Yeah, and that's at the heart of the story. That's and that I think is how many Christine, how many people have read the book? Have you had it? Has it been checked out? You're muted, Christine. Okay.
Sorry. We have the book in the Pasadena Library. Right now, I do not know to tell you how many times it has been checked out, but we could find out for
Okay.
you. But it's right here, and it's available for everyone to check out and put a hold on it and pick it up at your local branch.
Yeah, I see Tim just weighed in and he said he hadn't read it yet, but now it sounds very interesting and he wants to read it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Howard. That's the mystery in the heart of it. I mean, you have the baseball team all around, but then you have the key central figure of the book is Singh.
And his story and the governor's story, I would say that less than 50% is really baseball, or the actual playing of baseball. And as Chris said, it's a suspenseful, in a way, mystery. Obviously, at the, who really did he kill? Did he kill? How was the wife involved? Is she in love with him? And, at the very end, well, no more said.
Yeah, that's you got to get the book to be able to read about that. But it's, to me, I think the image that's burned into my mind is how this baseball team would be sent out of the prison to play other teams, and they would be taken out, handcuffed and shackled, and this hauled off of the bus, and kids would run up to them and ask for their autograph. I mean, these were hardened criminals. These were serial killers, and children just idolized them. And they were for that particular area, like some of the top baseball players today, you would be seeking. I mean, I'm a huge Kansas City Royals fan, and it would be people running up at that time to get Joseph Singh's autograph would be paramount to me running up to George Brett to ask him for his autograph, which, by the way, George Brett does give us a quote for the book. So I had to seek him out with this baseball book. I mean, I'm such a fan. I thought this is a great opportunity. And he has emailed me a couple of times to share how much he's enjoyed the book. So, you know, it's a story that's unlike any that's ever been told. And it's based on real facts. It's not something that was made up. And that's what's so fascinating about history. You have to really go a long ways to make history boring. And then you happen onto a story like this, where you're just at the edge of your seat, waiting to find out how it all ends, and how you find yourself rooting for these hardened criminals who are playing ball, and it makes you feel funny about that. I mean, some of these men were rapists, and I found myself when I'm writing it going, well, this guy is such a great third baseman. I hope things go well, and he's able to play. I mean, it's just this kind of. It doesn't seem like you would be feeling that way, but you do.
Yes, on the field, they were heroes. The public was rooting for them.
Yeah.
And then, as Chris said, when the game was over, the shackles were put back on and they go back to their cells.
But you had ladies who would come to the prison and set up lemonade stands and would have muffins. I mean, these were, it's just the most unusual setting that you can imagine. And people sought them out. People wanted to know. They wrote letters to the warden to ask about the players. Can we get them to sign certain things? And so Howard and I had baseball cards made up too of the team. So I could send you a set of baseball cards, Christine, so they could be someplace where people can check them out with the book.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be very fun. Very, very fun. Very different.
Yeah, there you go.
So did they kind of try to recruit all these terrible criminals to be on the baseball team, or did they train them? How did they happen to have them all? Because, and then my second question is, did the teams come from Reno, Nevada, Bodie, California? Did they all come there to see them, or did they actually travel there?
Whoever wanted to play the All-Stars out of state would have to come to Wyoming to play them.
Oh, they'd have to come.
They didn't have that kind of security, but they weren't recruiting anybody. They were the people on death row, and here was the option. If you're a good player, let's see what you got. If you're not a good player, you go back in the cell and you don't get to come out. But your form of exercise is going to be playing baseball. So. Michael has a question. It says, raises the question, I didn't see it all.
Should character matter for entry into the Hall of Fame?
Well,
we just want to make sure they're a good baseball player. Doesn't matter who they are, I guess.
Yeah, I think that Pete Rose has been debating that for years. I still don't think that he's in the Hall of Fame, is he? Did he ever make it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
There was something about trying, maybe he did, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I didn't follow it, but.
Okay, I just see somebody up there.
No.
Mike S said nope, he has not. So yeah, certainly if you were playing for the Death Row All-Stars, character didn't matter at all. It was whether or not you could field, you could pitch, you could bat. Nothing else mattered than that. It didn't care. I don't care how many banks you held up. Doesn't matter to us. Can you pitch? If you can pitch, come on and play.
I bet they got there and quickly learned how to play baseball if they didn't already know it, because it extended their life. They weren't going to get released ever. They knew that. This was just going to let them stay alive, correct?
That's right. Now, George Sabin shouldn't have been released, but find out in the book. This is my only giveaway that I'll tell you, is that Sabin does escape from the prison, but how he escapes and why, you'll have to find that out in the book too. But there was only one. Joseph Singh is the first one to be executed, and George Sabin is he escapes. But I think they're looking the other way to allow that. Because like I said, he killed sheep herders. And at that particular time in Wyoming, that was a good thing.
So how did you tell us about how you did the research? You went to the prison and you then went through all the newspapers around it, or
I did do that, but I spent a lot of time talking to prison historians, people who were, no, I'm reading that question up there. It says, were there stays of execution? No, not after they were found out that they were betting on the team. There were no more stays of execution. That was the only way that they were going to be able to keep the bigwigs from going to jail, was to take away everybody that could talk. But in doing the research, that's what we did. We spent a lot of time talking with, digging through the historical archives. Joseph Singh's story went all the way to Germany. And so a lot of the research was taking place there. So.
Okay. So how many inmates were there?
Who played for the team?
Yeah, who played for the team, or did they have extras? I mean, no?
They had a total of 12, including Saban, who was the captain, who may or may not play, depending on, he wasn't a great player. And so he was primarily the captain, but he was also a backup should anything happen. But they try to make sure nothing happened. If you got beamed in the head with the ball, you'd have to shake it off because you were getting back out there to play. If you couldn't, then Saban would come in. But Saban was the only one who was exempt from being taken out if he wasn't a good player, because he was the bag man for the team. He went and picked up the money, brought the money back to the warden, and it was dispersed from the prison.
Okay, and it says actually that the team made so much money for the local gamblers that they were devastated when it was all found out, and they had to stop this.
Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were very, and they delayed Singh's execution as well, just so that he could keep playing.
Yes.
So this was a big.
And Howard, do you want to speak to his family trying to, the book has some of those great pieces in it too, his mother writing letters to the prison. His mother and the rest of the family were, and that's in the book, wrote several letters saying, please don't let anything happen to my son. He is a good ball player. And there's a picture in the book of Singh's mother holding one of his, holding a grandchild, just to be able to show you he comes from a good family.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's also part of the story is him at the prison and how he is brought into the team. I mean, he just doesn't quickly go become a baseball player.
Yeah.
He is lured into that position and proves himself.
Right. I don't even think that, I think he was reluctantly brought into it. I don't think that he went there saying, hooray, I'm going to get to play baseball. He was preoccupied with so many other things that were going on in his own life. And I got to tell you, I don't know how you'd focus. I understand. I mean, they just had to set everything else aside. The fact that you might die if you didn't do well this game, talk about being in a zone where you just focus on the game. So I don't know whether I'd be able to do that. But they managed to do it.
And they gave them uniforms too, so they all had uniforms that matched, kind of
right
in a way, and with their names on it based on the picture. You can see
right their names and their numbers. You had your inmate numbers. So yeah, and they had a couple of different uniforms. Let me see if I can find one of that picture that I was telling you about with regards to.
There's a picture also of the Gallows.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, Howard. Let me see if I can find a picture of the gallows. Oh, here's a picture of the gallows. This is the Julian Gallows.
Doesn't even look clean.
Yeah, well, and of course that's below.
Yeah.
That's below the setting, and they would be standing up top.
And
then
that's where the audience would be watching.
right. And then there's a glass window that looks out into the dispensary, and the dispensary is glass and looks out into the gallows. So, you know, it was a happy time all the way around. Here's a great shot of the baseball field itself. You can see that it's concreted all the way around. Every time I have been there, it's been snowing, but that's kind of indicative of Wyoming. But yeah, I mean, it's oh, here's that picture I was telling you about Singh's mother holding one of the grandchildren to let you know he comes from a good family. We love our children. He's not a murderer. Look at me and my son. I don't know how that's an argument for that, but it's what they thought.
So
Does
you
anybody-
have extensive notes in the back of the book. And one of them I found very interesting. It's from the Farmer's Almanac, Wyoming, 1911. What would have been in the Farmer's Almanac? Just how the weather was for that day?
Right, absolutely. So you can see what, you know, because some people argue, well, of course they always played. The sun was always shining and they always did a good job because the weather was always with them. But, you know, looking back for the Farmer's Almanac and being able to say what was going on with each game, you could see that's not necessarily the truth. And it didn't make any difference what the weather was. You were still required to play the best you could or you would be killed.
Okay. And then also you were able to use the individual prisoner intake forms. So those must have been part of the history or the prison records that you were able to get. So
That's correct. That's correct. So,
or has this prison been closed?
pardon me? I didn't hear that.
Is this prison still in existence?
It is still in existence.
It's still,
You can-
but they don't they've stopped the baseball playing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. The prison is still is in existence as a museum, but there's nobody, there's no inmates. There are no inmates there. That's why I said, you know, it's
Christmas
chilling.
decorations are in one of the
Right. It's chilling to go there and, you know, it's a haunting place because there's nothing, you know, you can hear the wind through everything. And I think I've got a picture of what one of the units looks like and how desolate it is. And it's like that when you go and visit.
There's a
here.
picture of the front, the castle-like looking facility.
Yeah. But see, it's desolate, and that's pretty much what it looks like when you are there and just empty. And the sound and you know, when they had their own baseball memorabilia in some of the cells, baseball cards, some of the cells have writing on them about their different scores. So these men who played baseball were also fans of the game too.
Right. And in the index, you can go and alphabetically look up everyone's name. And
Right.
So if anyone's curious, if they think they might know someone, they can go to this index and see if they indeed do.
And Howard and I are really, we make certain that our endnotes and our bibliography is quite extensive. So there isn't anybody who can say that didn't happen. There's plenty of places where you can go and refer to and see what happens. And the baseball cards that I shared, that I told you about at the beginning, their baseball stats are the positions that they played and then everything on the intake form. How, you know, what they are in there for, their list of crimes.
Right. Well, there are 2 full pages of bibliography of books and articles. There are 1, 2, 3 pages of newspaper periodicals. There are websites, a page and a half of well, actually, it's more than a page and a half. It's really actually 2.5 pages of websites and this very detailed index. So done lots of extensive researches, as we've actually found, and people have attended and listened to your other books. So you wanted to know what we actually had in the Pasadena Public Library. So as I said, we have the Death Row All-Stars. We have the Iron Women that you presented. We have the Pinks, and we have the Trials of Annie Oakley that you wrote, Chris, along with Howard. And that was the one where Hearst and his magazine tried to, what would you say?
Defame
Defame
Annie. Yeah. I forgot.
Annie.
I forgot that I talked with you guys about that. Yeah.
Right, right. And so we have all of these books in the Pasadena Library, and they're also available at Froman's if you would like to check them out and put them on hold. And we hope you do so. Check them out because they're fascinating reads.
And we were talking before we got into the Zoom about the book that Howard and I have coming out later on this year called Straight Lady, The Life and Times of Margaret Dumont, the fifth Marx brother. And we want to be able to hold our launch of the book in Pasadena. So
in person. That's
in person in Pasadena.
Very exciting to be planning an in-person program, especially with the Marx Brothers. I wonder how many ever watched the Marx Brothers and all those crazy, crazy movies. So,
right. And I'm sure that the minute you see Margaret, you'll say, "Oh, that's who it is."
Right.
And recognize her in other works too.
Right. That's right. That's
all right. I can't visualize Margaret right now, but I can visualize the Marx Brothers.
Yeah. Well, I will send a cover of the book to you, Christine, and you'll go, "Oh, yes, that's who it is. That's who it is." She has one of those kind of faces. Do any of the folks here in the galley have any questions about the book? Anything they want to bring up? Okay, I guess that's it. Oh wait,
Okay.
Tim. He just says he has to read it. It sounds great. Thank you, Tim. We hope that you do read it, and we hope that you do think it's a great little slice of history that few people know about.
So I hope when you come in person, because remember, Chris lives in Northern California and Howard lives here in Pasadena. So when you present your Marx Brothers book in person in Pasadena, at that time you can meet some of the fans that are here. And Tim McDonald is our acting library director right now. So it's very nice that he's attended. So
yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you who were a part of this presentation today. I hope everybody found it interesting and will run, not walk, to get the book. So
I'm sure they all will. And it's available at the Pasadena Public Library. So please.
You have such a wide variety of, it's cut out on my side. Someone just wrote in, you have such a wide variety of something.
That are books that are so thoroughly researched. Thank you for sharing them with us. So you do an extensive amount of original research, all of it, as I've just identified what was in all of your resources, how much original research you do.
Howard and I like to go for those stories that have such amazing history, but we like to get primary source material. The book that's coming out in next week, called The Widowed Ones, it has stuff in it that no one's ever seen before, ever in the history of everything that you know about The Last Stand. There are things in this book no one has seen before. So, and we pride ourselves on that. We've got a book coming out next year about the life and times of Bill Tillman, who was the greatest lawman in the Old West, and his wife Zoe, not unlike Elizabeth Custer, helped make him as famous as he became. And I found out today through talking with some of Tillman's relatives that they have things no one has seen before, and they're going to give them to Howard and I. So I'm very happy about that. So that's the plus about working on these subjects. You get a hold of things that no one has seen before, and it's always a pleasure to be able to work with Howard. I mean, you know, Howard is an award-winning executive producer, but a lot of people, you know, you got to know Howard did a little film called Raiders of the Lost Ark. He did a little film called Revenge of the Jedi. That was Howard. Howard did.
Big
he's
film.
done-
Big film.
Yeah,
Big
Howard
film.
has been. He's also has his own biography that came out. Howard, what's the name of your biography?
Howard Kazanjian, A Producer's Life.
Well, see, I don't know how I could have forgotten that, but I mean, that's a great book. That would be a great book too, to be able to sometime too, Christine, talk to him about that, because I mean, he has worked with Sam Peckinpah. He's worked with some of the greats, and he's
That would
just
be fascinating. So how do you come up with these people or things that you're researching for one book, you're discovering someone else at the same time?
right. That's how we're doing it. We just, for example, with our book about Margaret Dumont, the publishers let us know that the book has already done pre-sales so well that they've asked us to do another one. And so Howard and I sat and talked about what our next subject would be. And we decided that we would focus on the actress Jean Arthur and the making of the movie Shane. And getting a hold of some rare material that no one has seen about Jean Arthur or the making of that amazing Western.
Well, and a lot of young people have to read the book Shane pre-high school. That's
Oh, do they really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
That's really good. Christine, I'm writing that down. We're sending you
Write
some.
that down, yes, because I know a whole group of young people that had to read that book before
Wow.
they went into high school. Shane.
That is wonderful. Okay, perfect. Because
Well, they should read it and then see the movie, because the movie is probably one of the top 7 to 10 Westerns of all time.
right. And Jean Arthur, the the female lead in that was her last motion picture. She had a nervous breakdown shortly after that and never made another movie again. So, you know, we always love to go for those stories that people will know about, like our Annie Oakley book. People know about Annie Oakley. They just didn't know about that one aspect of her life where she sued William Randolph Hearst for defamation of character. So those are the stories we like to go after. And Death Row certainly does fall into that category.
Definitely. Definitely it does. Well, it's a very exciting, interesting book. And as Chris and Howard said, it's not just about baseball. There's lots of other interesting, there's the corruption and there's the murder that's in it.
Yes.
So you will enjoy the story. And I encourage everyone to check it out from the Pasadena Public Library and participate in One City, One Story 2022. Read the book on Stealing Home, Los Angeles, the Dodgers, and the Lives Caught in Between. And if you sign up for Summer Reading Club, you can get a free copy to read and then to share with other people that don't have a copy. And we look forward to seeing you in person on Saturday, June the 25th at Robinson Park Community Room at 3 p.m. And then we're looking forward to welcoming in the fall for an in-person program so that you can meet Chris Enss and Howard Kazanjian. That would be very, very nice. And it's nice to get back to in-person programs. So we thank you very much for supporting us at the library. And we hope you have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.